Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. Mining Weekly editor Martin Quimo joins me today to unpack the latest news in the mining industry. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Ashni.
Now, Air Products believes that South Africa has an opportunity to develop its own hydrogen economy.
Yes, and Air Products has been in this market for decades. They know that market. They know where the grey hydrogen is being used, where you can bring in the green hydrogen. And I think the emphasis on building the domestic green hydrogen value chain first, concentrating on that heavily, rather than just saying, oh, we've got an opportunity to export into Europe, because the competition going into Europe is fierce. And you've got other countries that are much closer. But if you start developing here, we've got a lot of advantages in that we've got a situation where we know where the pollution is, we know where you can change it. There's a lot of use of grey hydrogen. I think we're absolutely obliged to change that grey hydrogen to green hydrogen. And all the other efforts in the industrial market, there are paints and there are inks and there are all sorts of products that use hydrogen. So if we concentrate now on developing this domestic market, it will put us in a good position once there's more activity around the world and there's more demand for this. It could even put us into a leadership position because we'll be so far ahead. And so we have got the big Kucha project. It is going ahead. It's being funded, which is very good. But the point they're making, if there are too many of those, they'll start eating each other's lunch. So it's better to let that one go and concentrate domestically. And we could have a very good, interesting growth, because we're going to have to go green at some stage, rather go green and clean collectively where we've got absolute markets to pursue.
Now, can you also tell us about Mzansi Energy Consortium's 12-year green energy supply agreement?
Yes, so when we look at Mzansi there, we've got to look at Phalaborwa Mining Company. So Phalaborwa Mining Company, which we don't report on enough, is a fantastic copper mining company in Limpopo, close to Kruger National Park. So they've done this deal for 12 years now of solar power, which is very good for these mines. They must get clean energy themselves, but they do it as a business case as well because they get the energy cheaper. But what we don't often think about when we think of Phalaborwa Mining Company, we think immediately of the copper, but what about the vermiculite? That vermiculite part of it is very interesting as well, and they market the vermiculite, and they've got offices around the world where they market it. So I think a very nice deal, a long-term deal, a clean green deal, but at the same time, it's just given us another look at Phalaborwa Mining Company, which is quite a fascinating company.
And lastly, can you tell us about Zambia's transparent mining revenue system?
Yes, this ET, we call it the ET, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. We were asked, to go into that many years ago, and people within the government actually tried to persuade the South African government to adopt this Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Oh, they said, no, we're not going to do that. So I think that was a very, very bad move, because we need more transparency. There's absolutely no idea you have of where you can get a lot of access to who is applying for licenses, who's going to get licenses, who is going to mine where. Whereas I think we've got to take our hats off to Zambia now for not only embracing ET, as they call it, but turning it into ZT and putting the Zambia there, but going even further with creating this G factor, G for good practice, good governance, good government. So instead of when you go into get details on someone's, the government website, and you're looking at about 300 pages of all these applications, and just one application can be like 100 pages. This is a one-pager. You can see immediately, the wealth that's being created by these mines, how it's being distributed, how much the government is getting. And you can see that, if these communities are down the road from a mine, you can see what they're getting. But you also realize that it goes much bigger. It goes into the country. So you can see what is going to the government as a whole. And it's so important to have this visibility in mining. because that transparency gets rid of all irregularities, and that's what we need to get rid of. And I think in South Africa they need to take a tip from Zambia, because Zambia tell me now they're already having the DRC wanting to do this and follow them. They want Mozambique, people have been coming in, they want to do it. Nigeria even wants to follow them. I think South Africa needs to follow them. Let's be more transparent here. We need to know what's going on in our mining. We need to know what wealth is being created and where it's going.
Thanks for speaking with us, Martin.
Thanks, Sashni.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on the local and global mining industries. And don't forget to listen to the audio version of our Mining Weekly daily email newsletter.